usually it goes live immediately after I click it. So I'm here with John Meyer. I'm going to double check on my end that it is working. I'm going to pull you back up too. And if you are someone who is just seeing this for the first time, didn't even know that this was happening, this is a founder story interview with John Meyer. I'll give a little bit more background again right after I pull this up. There were some of you that said that you were going in the event, and I'm not going live directly in the event. I'm going live here on the discussion channel. So here I am double checking. All right, we are good to go. I see someone already liked it. So if you guys can hear us okay, and if you're already excited for this, hit the thumbs up button, comment below that you can hear us, and say hello to John Meyer. So excited to have you here. You're someone that's talked about a lot in Sioux Falls, someone that has been on stages, has done some great things. You're even wearing your Lemonly branded.
Yeah, I got my old fleece today. Yeah,
your old
out of the closet.
Lemonly. So I'm excited to really pull out some of the stories that you've had, the successes, as well as the failures, as well as everything in between, and maybe some of your origin story. Before we get to all that, I want to set the framework for the call and what these calls are for, and also what Startup Sioux Falls is all about. So you're seeing this because you're in the Startup Sioux Falls community. Maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but Startup Sioux Falls is actually a nonprofit organization. I'm Amos. I'm the community coordinator for it. I'm also going to click record here before I forget. But I'm the community coordinator for Startup Sioux Falls. And what I get to do is build the relationships for the founders in Sioux Falls and in the surrounding areas. And we're even opening up this beautiful co-working building. I get to do my first live stream here. I might walk around towards the end of it. Yeah, it's awesome. But we even have this co-working building right on North 6th Street in Phillips downtown, which is an incredible location. But Startup Sioux Falls is all about empowering founders. And we do that through connecting business owners or people that even have ideas or existing business owners to the right people, the right resources, and now the right co-working space even to collide with other founders and really build on each other with those relationships, with those ideas, with the accountability and encouragement. So I'm really excited about my position. Startup Sioux Falls runs this Facebook group, and that's why we want to give some value content like this, some stories with founders that you can relate to, and hopefully you can take this information and be encouraged by it, or even just make a connection to John. He's in a really cool new position, which hopefully he'll talk a little bit about in his story. So the framework for today, we'll spend the first about 10 minutes giving some introductions. That's my introduction, so I'm done. I've done a side business and I have it in the background. I want to grow it for the next 50 years. So I'm related to this type of material and this community. It really speaks to me. But I want you guys to hear from John, especially. I don't want to talk a lot. So we'll hear his origin story, some of the things that he's done, how he got to where he is right now. And then we'll dive a little bit deeper into those stories, the successes, the failures, the challenges, some advice, what he's doing now, what he's looking forward to. And then finally, we'll take some time for Q&A, but also talk a little bit more about the co-working space, and maybe I'll walk around and show you guys since we're so close to opening it. So if that sounds good, does that sound good, John?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
All right, awesome. Be energetic, be along for the ride. If you have questions throughout this process, if you agree with things throughout what John is saying, comment that down below. Build some encouragement, build some community here by commenting, whether you're watching this live or on the replay. So
yeah, how do we know? I know you and I are in Zoom. Sorry, I'm trying to find how do we know where questions come in, or you see them somewhere?
So
sorry.
Yeah, since
I'm all of a sudden I'm old now.
If you want to actually see the comments live, then you would go into the Startup Sioux Falls.
There we are.
Facebook.
I found it.
Yes.
I see Sammy says, sounds good. What's up, Sammy?
Yeah. That's it.
Sorry,
and we got 3 others watching as well. So no, that's good. We got to be ready. And I'll also be fielding the questions so you can just kind of get into the zone. But let's start with the story of who John Meyer is, some of your origin story, like a superhero. There's always a story arc. So I want to hear some of the background to how you got to where you are, even personal stuff, family.
Sure, you bet.
things like that?
So I grew up in Brookings. I like to say I grew up in, kind of middle America in a family of four in a cul-de-sac in South Dakota. So, pretty kind of average, I would say, in so many ways. But a great family, third out of four kids. I loved growing up in Brookings because you could just do a little bit of everything. A great sized town. I liked sports. I did soccer and track, but I also was a debate nerd and did theater and choir. And, so you felt like you could just kind of really stretch your wings and do a lot of things. And in many ways, that's probably relevant to my life today. I kind of consider myself a little bit of a generalist. I probably am, an inch deep and a mile wide type of person. I always really admire folks who can go a mile deep and an inch wide. That's just not quite the way my brain works. A little bit of shiny object syndrome, but as I've gotten older, I've been able to sort of harness that in a productive way, especially generally thanks to more talented people around me. I went to school in Luther College in Northeast Iowa, a little town called Decorah, a little Northeast Iowa town full of a bunch of Norwegians, which is fun. I majored in communications, which I always joke is short for I don't know what I want to do with my life. But what I like to say is, what did we do in 4 years as a communication major? We wrote a lot of papers, we worked in groups of people, and we gave presentations. And I think about my time as a CEO, I wrote a lot of emails. I worked with groups of people, i.e. employees and clients, and I gave presentations, right? Sometimes internally to my team and sometimes externally, on a stage. And so it actually worked. It worked out okay. And it was a lot of repetition, right? I'm big in the 10,000 hours and get as many at bats as you can. And so each presentation or paper, all that was just more practice.
Can you repeat those three things, John, that you had to do as a CEO and learned in communication?
Yeah, I think what I say write emails, work in groups of people, and give presentations. That was sort of me kind of creating a through line from my major to being a CEO. What I really think a CEO, and I've said this on my podcast before, is I've heard it said, a guest of mine, and I took it from her, cheerlead at every opportunity is what CEO stands for. And especially, maybe not in the beginning when you're doing a little bit of everything, but when you get going and you start to build a team, you really are a full-time cheerleader, right? You're cheerleading internally to your team and pumping them up and you're cheerleading toward the goal or the vision, the rocks you might be chasing. You're cheerleading in the community to your clients. Everything, it really is that. And honestly, I love that. I kind of often think of myself as a professional hype man. And that gets to what I'm doing now, which we can talk about later. Still very relevant to the idea. So I go to college there. Interesting story. My junior year, I took an entrepreneurship class, and I always tell students that you can take the class, but I would not be an entrepreneurship major. I just think most of it is learned on the job. And it's really difficult to learn how to be a CEO or learn how to be a founder. You just gotta do it, right? But I will say, as much as the textbook stuff maybe felt a little old and stale, one thing that the professor did was bring in entrepreneurs once a week from the community or the area to come speak, very much something that Startup Sioux Falls would do. And this gentleman came in and he spoke, and this is 2007, I think, something like that. And he talked about how he lived on a kind of farm outside of Decorah. He'd sometimes work at home. He had a downtown loft office in Decorah, which is a cute little downtown. He'd sometimes work there. He had his own company. He did some contractors. He was doing Google ads and Google search. This is early days internet. And it kind of blew my mind. I just didn't know that was a career choice. And I know now that seems really obvious, but that was 15 years ago. And I remember the bell rang and everybody left the room, running out to go to their next engagement or class or whatever. And I walked up to this guy and I said, "Hey, have you ever considered having an intern?" And he said, "Why don't you meet me at the coffee shop tomorrow?" And so the next day I did what 21-year-old John thought I was supposed to do. So I put on my suit and tie. I brought my pad folio with my resumes and multiple copies of my resume. And I was ready for an interview. And this guy, Jason, just said, "Okay, I set up your email. So I'm going to teach you how to do Google ads. Watch these videos, read these articles. We'll get started. How does, I don't know, $10 an hour sound," or whatever it was at the time. and I was just like floored. Like I asked and he gave me the opportunity. And this guy, Jason Trout, he's still an entrepreneur. I don't keep in touch with him much, but if I ever see him, I've always very clear that like he gave me the chance, like he nudged me and gave me the chance. And honestly, whenever I think about entrepreneurs, like really entrepreneurs are people who they don't wait around for permission. They just go. They just try it. And so I really am grateful that the idea of being an entrepreneur was never even on my radar until Jason sort of opened this world to me. So worked for him for a year. My senior year, I did some interviews for, they do like career counselors. So these different companies will come to campus and do these job fairs. I did 3 rounds of interviews with this company that called Accenture. And I was really debating between just continuing to work for Jason, and he was like, go live wherever you want. And that was really cool and appealing. But part of me still, like maybe again, that like cul-de-sac Midwest, I was like, I better take a job, like go get a salary, like do that. And I also was appealing because I got to move to Minneapolis. And the thought of living in a big city was appealing. I've been a lifelong Twins fan. So I moved to Minneapolis and I started a career in consulting. And then I only made it 11 months. So about 6 months in, I was like, oh, this just isn't for me. I remember calling my dad and saying, I think I'm going to quit. He said, stick it out for a year. Made it 11 months. And then actually got a grant through the state of South Dakota. It was a $15,000 economic development grant, which my older brother Scott and I applied for. And we moved back home in June of 2009 and started a company called Nine Clouds. Which still exists in downtown Sioux Falls, run by Sarah Carnes and team. And yeah, it was just like Scott was living in Norway. He was a little restless. I had this corporate job that I didn't really like. And we came up with an idea over a weekend. We applied. 15 grand seemed like a ton of money at the time. So we moved back. And actually that program, that 8-week program, very similar to like a Co-Starters today, was at what was called at the time SDTBC, South Dakota Technology and Business Center, which later became Zeal, which of course later became Startup Sioux Falls. So Sort of full circle.
Yeah, way at the beginning of this organization. Here I am at the tail end hearing from you. So happy that you're the one getting to express your stories here at the community. That's awesome. Super cool. What is Nine Clouds specifically?
Yeah, so Nine Clouds, I don't know, maybe 15, 16 employees. They are like inbound marketing, meaning they create content to help businesses find their customers, or I guess their customers find businesses. That I didn't really finish the story, but that was my story to becoming an entrepreneur. But they have since sharpened their focus and done much better. But in 2009, Scott and I, the original idea was we're going to help businesses learn how to use social media. These new Web 2.0 tools were emerging, and I know anybody watching this probably won't even believe me. It kind of dates myself, but like at that time, like people were like, you can use Facebook for business, or like what people were doing. This is before pages existed. They would create, first name Lemonly, last name Design, things like that. They would create these profiles, and we were saying, hey, there's this new tool called Twitter, and you can create content on YouTube. YouTube is basically like a search engine. And people were like, oh, what? Like we had to teach people, and this was real foreign at the time. So we did a good job of creating some like hype and awareness, but like we didn't have a really solid business model, and I guess it showed as brand new entrepreneurs. And then a couple of years into it, we were like, we tried to do too many things, and this is probably my biggest with my coaching program now. It's like become known for something, right? What are you known for? You're the blank guy or the blank girl. And I know that's oversimplifying it, but that's how the internet works. And so we said, what if we just do one thing and tried to do that one thing, world class? And that was the idea of doing infographics. And so 2 years in, Amy was our first employee. She became my co-founder. We started making infographics. Lemonly was this little side project kind of buried underneath Nine Clouds. And then it just took off. So ran that for a decade, built that to, I think at its peak, it was 22 employees. And then of course, after 10 years, I sold the company to ClickRain here in Sioux Falls, did a 12-month kind of earnout period. And then in January of 22, had a year where I tried to decide what do I want to do when I grow up. And so that's sort of what I had been spent the last year doing.
Sure. Wow. Okay. So that kind of went from origin story all the way through to the current stage. So let's pull out some of those years.
Sure. That was fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Those like 14 years. So when you were getting together with your brother and he was willing to come back from Norway, which is really cool that he was living there, but he was willing to come back because you guys had an idea. Can you take me through or take us through that process of, hey, let's just come up with an idea and let's make a business around it? And it sounds like it happened very quickly, but it might be difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah, it was. It was quick. He was home on this spring break and found this grant, a little brochure up on campus at SDSU, and we had like 2 weeks to fill it out. So we sort of kind of hobnobbed at this idea together. It was more it was less of a business and more of an idea that like people should learn how to use these modern tools. I remember a particular story was being at home in Brookings, and we decided to order pizza. And anyone who knows Brookings, it's a college town. There's plenty of pizza options. And my mom turned and went to the phone book, grabbed the phone book, like went to the yellow pages, was flipping through. And Scott and I looked at each other, we're like, "What is she doing? Like, just Google that, right? Like, just Google the number. Of course, like save it in your phone." I mean, the iPhone had just come out at this time, and so this is pretty early days again. But it was just like, wait a minute, there's going to be, these tools are going to change the way people work. We should figure this out. And so, I would say if anyone's doing co-starters or starting a company, already just make peace with the fact that your idea will not look the same on the other end. And that's okay. That's a good thing, right? So be very open to, I have an idea, I have a concept, I want to solve a problem. We'll see where this changes and what it looks like later. And I always think with my coaching clients, I talk a lot about, is your business a painkiller or a vitamin, right? Like I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love to think about ideas. I see things, I see apps, I see websites. I got a document full of business ideas, but is it a painkiller or is it a vitamin, right? Or you just like, it'd be a nice to have or a need to have. And I use the analogy, if, it's pretty cold today in Sioux Falls. And if I'm going to go out, if I see somebody on outside who doesn't have a coat and I'm selling coats, like I like my chances of getting that customer, right? But if they already have a coat and I'm just trying to sell them like my coat's fancier, or it's got more features, or it's just like the design is cool, it's just a more upward battle, right? And so you really got to think about the problem that you're solving. Really get obsessed with that idea.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for taking me through that. And I think part of it can relate to personality. You and I are very similar in that, like, go an inch or two deep and a mile wide. I feel the exact same way. I was super involved in all those different groups. For someone who maybe doesn't have that personality, or for different personality types, as a coach, you would understand that there's almost different ways to communicate, or different ways that people are motivated as a coach. So what does it look like, or what are the differences, and what advice would you give to someone who has a different personality than you, maybe who gets stuck on one single subject and can't move on, or just goes way too deep and overthinks things?
Yeah, I would say specifically in the context of entrepreneurship, which sort of startup Sioux Falls, that's where I think a co-founder is so crucial, right? Like in a couple of, I think I have 6 agencies and professional service companies I'm coaching with right now. And 2 of them have co-founders, but the other 4 are solopreneurs. And I think in many ways, as their coach, I kind of become like a pseudo co-founder, not officially, but, and I think part of, with my story, when Scott and I started, brothers, differences, uniquenesses, but similar skill sets and sort of our attributes. And so in many ways, we needed the team to really kind of get our foothold. Whereas Amy and I really clicked really quickly, because I'd say our strengths are pretty opposite. She is deep in her knowledge of design and creativity and ideas, and she's a practitioner, and she's a craftswoman. And I'm a storyteller and a writer, and I like to dream, and I think about how something can put together and motivate people. And so it's not a requirement. Certainly solopreneurs can be successful, but I really think finding a co-founder is a huge thing. And I think that's bringing us back to Startup Sioux Falls. Like when you're in that idea phase, that's where like these events, a co-working space, a 1 million cups before this, whatever it is so crucial. We're finding that co-founder, and it takes time. It's a big decision, right? It's almost like a marriage, right? You got to kind of date a little bit. You got to feel each other out. You don't just jump into it. But it's so important. And so I'd probably answer your question that way, which is like, I'm a big believer in like dive deeper into your strengths and punt on the weaknesses, right? We talk a lot in our culture about like fixing the things you're not very good at. And I would say just go deeper in what you're great at.
Yeah, that's really great advice. And I would like to talk more about the co-working space here in a minute. If you guys have any questions, we'll take a quick little pause. Like if you guys have any questions at all, please drop them in the chat, in the comments there, and I'll relay them. I think John's looking at them too. I've been capturing some of your quotes if you've seen.
Yeah, Adam asked if this is a stack of Gary Vee's books, and it definitely is. In 2022, I still have this business that's sort of on ice on the side, but I really dove deep into Web3 and blockchain, and really fascinated about NFTs and the technology. And although I still think they have a place, it seems like it's going to be a little bit time for adoption. But Gary sold, you could get books in exchange for an NFT. And so, yes, Adam, I have, if anybody wants one, I have way too many copies. My wife would like me to get rid of these books. So maybe I'll bring those down to the co-working space.
Nice. There you go. Okay. So you've obviously had a lot of success, and it's easy for maybe people to talk about successes and also feel disconnected from them. So I want to connect you to maybe people closer in that idea phase, or maybe really starting their first business or second business. And the first one may have failed. So before we switch to maybe talking about the co-working space, what is one major failure, if you're open to talking about that, and how did you handle it? What was the process like emotionally and even just logistically working through that?
Yeah, you bet. I mean, tons. People know me for probably Lemonly the most, or maybe Nine Clouds, maybe my podcast, whatever it is. But Amy could tell you if she's down at the co-working space, like she's designed a lot of logos for a lot of failed ideas or companies. I would say many of these didn't become like actual LLCs and entities and have K1 tax returns and things like that. But I am a person who's like, I like to ideate and test. And so like when you're excited about something, I always tell people like, go for it now. Like literally now. Like if you have an idea for a business, build it this weekend, because you are most excited about it today. And the beauty of even 2023 versus 09, when I started, the cost is nearly cheap, like nearly zero. You can go on Fiverr and build a logo. You can go on Squarespace and build a website. You can buy a domain for $10 and off you go, right? And so I have a lot of those, like probably close to 20, honestly. So the point is like you hear the successes, but you don't often hear the failures, right? And there are tons of them. So that's sort of a broad brush in terms of starting businesses. If you're, I know that the Kauffman Foundation, who started 1 Million Cups, has a lot of data, and often it's actually third-time founders who are the most successful, and usually the average age of an entrepreneur, I think, is 38 years old. And so it's not what we hear or what we think in the media, right? It's like college dropouts, it's like young tech bros, it's fashion, like influencers who start at a product line, like it's not true. Like that's not what the data backs up. And so it's people who have tried multiple times, who maybe have some experience, or maybe a few gray hairs, or some tried and true wisdom, who actually are the actual numerical average. So I think don't forget that. And then lastly, as a specific example, I would say like, there were times in Lemonly's history where someone either it didn't work out situationally, because maybe we went over our skis and trying to go after a certain type of position, or and we had to let someone go, or maybe it just didn't work out in terms of culture fit, or we had to truly like fire somebody. And I think I looked at those as failures, as just like, we whiffed in terms of like, we didn't set that person up for success. So we weren't clear about our expectations. We overestimated a market, or our forecasting, or our quarters for revenue, whatever it might be. You certainly wear those scars, and you don't forget them. And so while it is, I think, and I tell my coaching clients, part of the game, everyone's going to probably do it at some point as a founder. It doesn't get any easier. And so I always feel bad about that. And
then at the end of the day, it sounds like you as a CEO, as an owner, are taking responsibility for all outcomes. And
oh yeah. I mean, you have to, I said cheerleader every opportunity, but really leadership means owning your responsibility and owning your actions, while also deflecting praise. I mean, I think I always say, like, you just listen to the pronouns that a leader will use, and you can pretty quickly tell if they're a good leader, right? Is it my business and my idea, and I came up with this,
Sure.
and I did that? Or do you hear people say, like, well, we were there working on this thing, and then she did this, and then he came this, and together we did
Yeah.
this. And then, I think that to me is a sign of a really good leader.
Yeah. Very cool. I want to give you guys a chance to, again, ask a question. Also give you a chance to hop off before I talk about the co-working space, if you're not interested, just because I want to be respectful of your time. We're already coming up on 27 or 26 minutes here. And then thirdly, I wanted John to give the podcast that you've run for a long time. I actually just found that just looking at some things that what you're working on right now. But I would love to share your podcast and also hear a little bit more about the new position that you got to.
Yeah, you bet. So it's coming back here. I took a little bit of a break once I hit 100 episodes. It's called the Lead More Podcast, and we interview people that are extraordinary in their craft or their leadership or their history. My two goals are, one, that the world needs more leaders, and two, leadership doesn't always look the way it used to be. And so I like to joke that you do not need to be a white male CEO named John, which I was all of those things. And so part of the goal of the show is just giving the microphone and the platform to other leaders. So yeah, I did 100 episodes by about October, took a little bit of break. I want to change the show up a little bit, but I want to keep going. If anybody has done a podcast or thought about doing a podcast, if you get past episode 6, I believe you're in the top like 80th percentile. And if you can get to, or maybe is it 90? And if you get to episode 20, you're in like the top 5 percentile, like 95th percentile.
Wow.
So I love that analogy very much to entrepreneurship, which often is just like, keep going, right? Like, don't stop, keep going, keep refining, keep iterating, keep tweaking. So I'm excited to bring that back here in the new year. And it's very relevant because I now have another new part-time job in addition to my coaching business called January. I recently was named the new executive director of a program called Leadership South Dakota. And it is a nonprofit that is currently in its 9th class. I was in it in, I think, year 4 as a participant. So I'll get to head out the 10th class here this year. And we take about 40 individuals from across South Dakota and take them across South Dakota. So Rapid City, Pierre, we go to the reservation, Brookings, Sioux Falls, and it's part education, learning about leadership. We do some books. It's part experiences. For a lot of folks had never been on the Native American reservation, but I also think of it's part like evolution, right? You start on one place, and 6 months later, where can we take you on this journey? So, yeah, I'm excited. Yeah.
Wow, super, super cool. Is it a pretty rigorous process to get into that cohort?
I want to make it that way. I mean, it is like you meaning like I really want it to a lot of people to apply, right? So there's about 40 people. So I think last year I think there was maybe 60 applicants or something like that. I do think some of the spots are reserved for sponsorship folks. So that's part of the model. Is Sanford has a couple spots, and a couple different organizations have spots, but then the rest of the spots are filled by applicants. But yeah, I mean, the applicant is reasonable, I think, in terms of the effort. They open on March 1st, the applicants, and then that goes until about April 1st, the process. So.
Okay, got it. Very cool. Congrats. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Today. I'm going to do a quick little walk around of the space. You can feel free to stay on if you want to.
I'm going to jump. I have to go pick up my daughter. But cool. I am super excited. And although I love this new home office that I have that we kind of did post-COVID. But I am a member, and my plan is to work there at least one day a week. So I'm excited to whatever day will become my Startup Sioux Falls day.
Awesome. Any one piece of encouragement for anyone who's considering getting a co-working membership, leading the way you're already a member yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's this hesitation of like, oh, those won't be very productive days, right? Like I work best when I'm this here, there, or there. But I think I'm big on like kind of batching my time and theming my days. And at least for me, definitely as an extrovert, I need that sort of, I need a little hustle and bustle, and I need some people. I would say if you are in that, I have an idea, I need to find a co-founder, I need to ask some questions, I need to bump into some people. there used to be a co-working space called Meso, and that's where the very early days of Lemonly were born. And some of those people that were in that co-working spot, Addie Graham Kramer, I think some of the folks have moved on. Travis Rhodes, like people, entrepreneurs in community are still, friends today. And that was 10 plus years ago.
Wow. So. There you go. There's some good hard proof of co-working space and the strength of it. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
I look forward to seeing you a lot more in the space.
Yeah, sounds good. See you, everybody. Thanks.
See you. All right. So I let John go there. Cool. He's got to pick up his child. I got a almost 3-year-old, but I'm going to microphone and walk around just a little bit. Maybe I'll run into some of my coworkers here as well, just to show you the space. I did pin to the top of this Facebook group a tour that Sarah Lum did, a vice president here at Startup Sioux Falls. We're a team of 5. She walked through and actually showed all the spaces and kind of talked through it. I'll also drop inside of the comments, maybe in the description as well, a link to our membership page, which has our memberships and the amenities listed and all those types of things. But even if you just become a social club member, you're immediately in that little community, that network of founders, of creatives in Sioux Falls that are looking to grow a business, maybe get a co-founder and build something really, really cool. And also business owners that have expertise that maybe you don't have, so that you can focus on your strengths while they are, and instead of trying to do everything, you can have other people that have different strengths that you can lean on. We're also going to have events and programming that we're coming out with, and we'll let you know about all of it. So I'm going to walk around just a little bit. And then if you guys need to leave, feel free to leave. And if you're watching this on a replay, you can just fast forward to whatever you want to see. So here we got the lounge area. This is the private member entrance. Got a lounge here, TV. We'll have some get-togethers here. I was in a collaboration room. We got 2 of these collaboration rooms that are rented by the hour during business hours. And I'm gonna run over here. You probably see some of our teammates, they're setting up. We got bathrooms, 4 different bathrooms. That goes to the balcony. And I want you guys to at least say hello. John just left, but I was gonna give him another little tour. I already told him about yours. This is Jeff, this is Sarah, part of Startup Sioux Falls. We're so excited to have all you guys here. But here's the multi-purpose space, which is also going to be rented out for some awesome programs and projects. We got a balcony up there, which is hot desk co-working. Hot desk just means that it's free seating for whoever's in here with a hot desk membership. So you could sit in any of these places really to work until you come over here and we get into the main co-working space. There's all these dedicated sit-stand desks right here. That's a different level of membership where you kind of make it your station. This is Sarah's station. Check that out. That's pretty awesome. You can take your work from home stuff that you had at your kitchen table or office and bring it here and stay here instead. Then we got some hot desk seating on this end. We've got private offices that we're going to fill up with some awesome entrepreneurs. We got the front desk area going out to Phillips Street. We're right on Phillips and 6th. And then we got 2 awesome conference rooms. That one actually looks at the Arc of Dreams. So that's just a quick little tour. Guys, we're opening Wednesday, February 1st with a soft opening. And then later on in February, just a week later, we'll have all of the things really set up, and you can get a free day of co-working just to test out the space and talk to some of the entrepreneurs and meet the community here. It's going to be a really awesome central location where you can build your business and craft your ideas with other awesome people. That's all I got for you. If you have questions, please put the questions down below. I'll just make sure to direct you over to John, and we'll get those answered. Appreciate you, and we will see you next time. No, I'm still live.